Thanks for stopping by again. Email us at podcast@datingwhileadulting.com and download this podcast everywhere you find your fine podcasts and all that other good stuff. I am Michael Thomas. This is the Dating While Adulting podcast, and that is Reggie. Say hi, Reggie.
Hi, Reggie.
I say that is Reggie as if you automatically know he's here, but he is here all the time. So I guess I can say, but why am I getting lost in the weeds on that? Let's get to it. My first question for the day, Reginald, is why don't you have children? And let me just say before you answer that question, the reason that I have to ask that question carefully, and I know I can ask it to Reggie because I know his situation, is because that is not a question I found back in the day that you cannot just ask randomly, especially of women. Because one time I remember I was working with a woman and she was married and stuff like that. And I asked her why she didn't have children, and she started crying and went into this long story about how her and her husband had been trying, but they had not been successful. And as such, they couldn't have children. And I'm just sitting there like looking like, how do I get out of this now?
Slowly
So
back away from the cake.
right. So it's like I've learned like not to ask anybody if they're pregnant just because they're big. And I've learned not to ask anybody why they don't have children if they don't have children, because I've been burned both ways. But since I know Reginald and his wife, I can ask him that question, and because he's a man and he won't get as upset about
But hurt.
answering the question.
Yeah, but hurt.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into all the hormonal stuff that women go through and all that because I don't care. But Reggie, why don't you have kids? You and your lovely wife.
I'm going to make this a very short answer. My wife didn't seem very enthusiastic about having kids, even though people keep saying, oh, once she had them, she would turn around. See, I'm not one of those certain things I can play around with, but like, oh, okay, once you get into it, you'd enjoy it. Kids, not one of them. And if you don't have enthusiasm about having kids, you probably shouldn't have kids. And my wife wasn't necessarily, my wife was actually about it. Okay, if you want to, we're not playing that. No, I'm not going to take that chance that you're going to all of a sudden get this maternal instinct when you have them in your arms and stuff. I need you to have some enthusiasm beforehand.
That's interesting that you say that because I have an ex. Well, I have several exes, but one in particular that I'm thinking of. She actually told me like years after we broke up that she had wanted children, and her girlfriends, knowing that I didn't want kids, and her girlfriends used to tell her, "Well, just get pregnant, and he'll come around." So it's interesting to hear that from your perspective when I've heard it from women saying that, thinking that children would just make the world go around, and if you just bring a child into the relationship, the other person would just come around. So shout out
I
to
have
your
some
wife.
I have so many issues with that statement right there. And uh yeah.
Well,
Uh,
let me ask you this, and just a little background on Reggie's wife. She's a school teacher, so she's around kids all day, every day. Well, she used to be. And so I wonder if that shaped part of her opinion about kids. But did she ever want kids? Was she
no.
always kind of lukewarm?
She's always been lukewarm, and that's the thing about it. Because my wife is a teacher, and I've hung around a lot of teachers. This is one of the things, I believe in grace, but this is one of the not gray areas. Either teachers love children, including their own, or they don't. And my wife is one of those. Nah, I can do it out. I'm good. Just give me a cat.
So did she ever want kids?
No,
Did you
I
ever
mean
want?
I'm not gonna say she never wanted kids, but she's always been lukewarm. So this may be a stereotype, but if a woman's lukewarm about having kids, that's more than likely she doesn't want kids. But because of societal pressures, she can never. I mean, it's becoming a little bit more acceptable on the surface. But women who declare that they don't want kids get looked down upon and being less of a lady and a woman and all that stuff. So, you know, speaking for her in this one, I would say that she really doesn't want kids, never did want kids, and I felt that vibe.
And I definitely understand those societal pressures because as a man who doesn't have children, I've had to deal with fighting people who are like, you should have a child. You're so selfish for having a child, which is the strangest thing to me. It's selfish to have children in a world
Actually,
that's overpopulated, but whatever
actually,
works.
yeah, we need to get back to about that selfish and children thing too, because that's a key point.
Well, yeah, because the thing about it is women as much pressure as I've received and as much as I've had to fight and battle, I would imagine from your wife's perspective and women's perspectives that don't have children, it could be infinitely worse the pressure that they would have from society. But I will say, and I'm interested in hearing whether you believe in this, I do believe that there is like some kind of something, chemical something, whatever you want to call it, that makes women predisposed to desire children. Now, I know that you have an issue in certain cases where women say that their whole existence is based on having children. But I do believe that it seems like women have more of a desire to have children than guys do. You agree with that?
I on average, yes, I would agree with that on average.
Okay. So my next question for you is, we talked about your wife. Did you ever want children? Because it sounds like you were open to it, but I never heard you that you were had any kind of passion for it. Did you ever want kids?
Um, yes.
Okay. And you, I doubt seriously at 51 that you're planning on having any now. So what
No.
changed?
Um, she didn't want kids, so I wasn't going to burden her with it. And you know, because regardless of, because I had a friend of mine that I used to work with, and he was in a similar situation where he wanted kids, but his wife didn't want kids, and he struck a bargain with her. And the bargain was, you just have the kids, I do all the heavy lifting, and that's pretty much what he did until the kid left and went to college. I probably would have been that type of person. Unfortunately, um, there are some traditional things that do linger with me, and I'm not going to have a kid by myself just to have a kid by myself. They need to be a unit, me and her. And she's not really enthusiastic about it. What's the point?
Okay. Yeah, because that's interesting because oftentimes having kids is one of those things where it seems like either you're super passionate about it or it's like you don't want them at all. It's like you rarely meet, at least I rarely meet people who are in that middle ground where I could have them or not. It's like usually I have to have them at all costs, and I'm sure you've heard of it, but I've
Yeah.
heard of people who actually got divorced over that.
Yes, actually, I was going to bring that up. There's another guy I work with who divorced his first wife because she didn't want kids and he wanted kids. If I put it on the scale, the great scale between me and my wife, um, and the extremes being not having kids is 1 and having kids are 10, and the middle ground, the gray scales would be 4, 5, 6, and 7. My wife would probably be a 4. I'd probably be a 6. And because if we all know,
Those
if
aren't high
Reggie had,
numbers.
well, no, if Reggie had an 8, Reggie would be having kids right now. So, but we both, whether she wanted to have kids or not, she just had to sit there and lay there and just let me do my thing. And, and I would, we can take the kids off and smuggle them into Bethlehem and go to Egypt and, all that good stuff. She just be the vessel. That's all I need. If I wanted one and she didn't.
She just lay there and you have to do a mister on her from the
Yeah, pretty
color
much.
purple.
Pretty much.
And for people watching this, if you haven't seen the color purple, shame on you, especially if you're black and you hadn't seen the color purple. There's no excuse.
Even I, who only seen 2 movies, that was one of them.
First of all, I don't believe that for a second. Reggie has not seen the color purple because, as we all know, Reggie has not seen a movie since Uptown Saturday Night. So I am not buying that for a second. Reggie, you have not seen the color purple.
Harpo. Yeah.
Reggie. Reggie, you're being able to quote like half a line from a movie does not prove anything to me. Yeah, after this thing is over, because I don't want to bore people like while we're recording, I'm gonna give Reggie a color purple quiz.
Okay, that was too deep in it. Okay.
Yeah, to see how much he remembers.
Like I said,
I know people who can quote that joint chapter and verse. It's almost scary.
I mean, come on now. The color purple, if you're a black man, you have to see the color purple because you got to know what you're up against.
Well, shoot, sounds like women need to see it to know what they were up against, considering shoot, all they had to deal with, including that whole scene with Mister just laying on top of laying on top of chick. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
As we digress.
Yeah. But Color Purple's a good movie anyway. But yeah, a 4 and a 6, those aren't really good reasons to have children. What's interesting to me is I know a few women, which is surprising. It surprised me when I heard it the first time, but then to hear other women who actually said it. I know a few women whose husbands, like you said, were desperate to have kids and gave them that whole bargain. Well, if you have the kid, I'll take care of it and you can just chill. I guess their thinking was that once the woman had the child, they have this instant bond with the child that would make them be comfortable reneging on that promise. And
Yeah.
then next thing you know, the dude is like, well, this is a lot more work than I thought.
Yeah,
You need to
exactly.
carry your weight. And then next thing you know, he's carrying no weight. And
Is
then she's stuck with a kid.
exactly.
And boy, I will say,
Resentment.
meeting
Ooh.
those women later on down the road makes them
Mm-hmm.
hard to date when they've
Mm-hmm.
been through that.
Resentment. Ooh, my goodness. But
Trust me.
no, my thing is on me. If I would have had the kid, you know me, I would have taken over the kid. I would have taken it over the kid. So
Let me just say this. The scary thing about you, Reggie, is that even if you were a 10 and your wife were a 10 and you all had the child,
I still take over the kid.
you would still take over the kid. You would be like we talked about earlier. You would literally be looking over her shoulder like, you're doing it wrong. Boy, you would be like crazy dad.
Yeah, I'd be crazy dad.
so
This is the one. I think that would be crazy dad.
yeah, so it might have worked out for the best that y'all didn't have a kid.
I
Yeah,
think
that
so.
4 and a 6 in you all's case.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
that six would have definitely carried a 10 real quick and be like, wait a minute. That temperature of that milk, hey, it's not right. Hey. And she's like, well, I did the finger. I built a whole little temperature water gauge thing for the milk. Like, this is the correct temperature between this range.
yeah.
Okay.
It would be scary. And let me just go back to something I alluded to earlier when I talked about those women being hard to date. If you meet a woman and she tells you a story about how the husband convinced her to having a child that she wasn't super excited to have,
Run.
run.
Run fast.
That woman is undateable unless the very next sentence includes therapy. Nah, you don't want that. Trust me. This is a handy note from your boy Michael to you in dating. You're
I,
welcome. You'll
I can
thank me
see that.
later.
I can definitely see that one. Run fast. Usain Bolt fast.
Yeah. So, and just to put a button on that, so going back to your interest level, so you never got above a 6. You were always just lukewarm about it. You were never. It's not like it ebbed and flowed. It was like you were always in this consistent level.
No, it ebb and flowed.
Okay.
It
Okay.
ebb and flowed.
Okay. So at some point you were like close to 10.
Yeah. Well, 9, 8, 9.
Okay. I think that like the way that you talk about marriage in the sense that you say women their goal is to be married but not necessarily to make a marriage work. And of course women would dispute that, but whatever. It, I kind of see that being the case with children, with a lot of people wanting children,
Mm-hmm.
but not realizing how it works. Because the thing about it is, when you talk to mothers of small children,
Mm-hmm.
boy, oh boy, oh boy,
Mm-hmm.
it's always like, I love my children,
But
but and there's always a but
but
once they get into the day to day and talk
mm-hmm.
about how you lose yourselves in a guy, which is something we talked about in one of the podcasts. I think it was the Inequity of Marriage podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, lose yourself in a guy. Boy, women can lose themselves in children and not in a good way. And it's like, man, just having
Yeah.
like an adult to talk to on a regular basis. But hey,
It's a love-hate relationship with them, I think, for the majority of them that
yeah,
they don't want to admit. Because going back to what you said before, it takes a very courageous woman to sit there and say, after having kids, uh, if I had to do this all over again, I wouldn't. And
yeah,
that's that phrase where they sit there and say, "I love my kids," but is a passive aggressive way, in my opinion, of sitting there saying they wish they knew more about it, because if they did know how hard this crap was, they wouldn't do it. But of course, they can't say that because then they'd be branded as a bad parent, a bad mother.
right. It's the criticism that you face if you dare say that you don't like your children. um, and that if you had it to do all over again, you would give them back.
Yeah,
Is that fear of whatever repercussions that involves, as if there would be any really.
not
Um,
really.
but more and more parents are talking about that and being honest about that. But okay, me myself, I've never wanted kids. I never did. I was never shoot. I don't even know if I was a 3. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it was never something that I desired. And part of the reason was because of the way that I was brought up and seeing how my mother was when she had us. um, versus how other people's lives were. And I was just like, I don't really see the benefit of having children. And because I felt like I was shortchanged in a lot of my childhood, I felt like I was going to spend my adult years making up for it. So obviously that it caused a lot of consternation when it came to dating, because especially younger, when I was younger, because every woman that I would meet would want kids. Every now and then you would find a unicorn, and they'd be like, no, I don't want kids either. And it'd be like, wow, it's a utopia. But for the most part, I've had many relationships stall because I didn't want kids. And I have met many women who thought that they could just, if they stayed with me long
Long
enough,
enough,
that,
you'll break down. Yeah.
yeah, they would break down. And then I was thinking as I got older, well, hey, I'm in my 40s now. So I'm dating. When I was in my 20s, every woman wanted a kid. When I got into my 30s, I started to meet more and more women that had kids, to the point where every woman
Mm,
had a kid, and they
mm,
were young kids. And it's
mm.
funny now how when I would be like, well, because for the longest time I didn't date women with kids. But just
I
say,
wonder why. We're gonna get to that
yeah,
later.
yeah,
Details at 11.
yeah, especially younger kids. And now it's funny that women are now saying that they don't date men with younger kids, when I just used to get like excoriated
Oh my
for
God.
daring to say that I didn't date women with kids. And now women readily say, I won't date a man with kids. Nicole in our Ask a Women segment, she was like, I don't date a man with small children. So it's like, it's funny, and not talking about Nicole, but just talking about women in general, how I was the bad person because I was like, I don't want to date a woman with small kids. Now women are being like, now I see what you mean. And
See
it's
that
like, you should have saw what I
hypocrisy.
meant. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
the
what it is.
hypocrisy.
It's hypocrisy. So that was in my 30s. And then when I got into my 40s, I was like, okay, cool. The kids are either gone or close to it. But
You would think, right?
I was still, huh?
You would
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And I was still meeting women in my 40s, in their 40s, who didn't have kids, who were still like
Still
holding
wanted
out
a
on the
kid.
dream.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, and I'm not talking about a few, it was like a trend. And I'm like, sheesh. It's like, I
Mm-hmm.
just can't get away from the whole concept of kids. Now,
Mm-hmm.
fortunately, I am at a place
You sure?
where I'm still exact. I'm not,
You sure?
but I am at a place, kind of, sort of, where I'm meeting women who have children, and their kids are in the mid to upper teenage range, or the kids are out of the house altogether. But I'm just getting to that point now. And man, it took a lot to get to that point. Whew.
Well,
Now,
I got two notes. One note is um actually I'm 51, and I still sometimes, you get this thing, have these casual conversations and stuff like that. I get, they ask, so you have kids? I said, no, I don't have kids. He said, well, you're still young, you still have kids, right? And this come from guys too. This come from
yeah,
men too.
yeah,
And I'm like, dude, I'm 51. So by the time I have, let's do the math here. I'm 51 and have the kid, I'd be 52-ish. By the time that kid gets out of college, if I'm not dead already, because I'm black and the average death rate, the mortality rate is 67. If I'm not dead, I'll be in my mid 70s.
man. Like I always used to tell women, I was like, I cannot be the senior citizen pulling up and dropping my kid off at daycare. I,
No,
I just can't be that dude. That's just a
it,
bad look.
even though
And
we're still physically fit to be that dad, versus
right,
some of the 20 and 30-year-olds who look like they are our age, I just can't be that guy.
right, right. So yeah, I can't be that dude either, like I just said. But with that said, you had a different route though before you got married. You didn't have a problem dating women with kids, right?
Yeah, I had no problems with it. You talked about your childhood. My childhood, I wasn't blessed until my mom and dad got divorced at 12. So when I go to talk to my therapist, I talk to my therapist for all the crazy ideas I have. That when Mike doesn't feel like dealing with my crazy ass anymore, I go to my therapist. Um, and my dad used to pick up strays, as I like to say. So he'd be fathers to everybody's kids, including me. And sometimes they get a little jealous about that, but I digress. My mom and dad
And,
got divorced.
and me.
And yeah, and
After my dad died. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, continue.
So as my mom and dad divorced, my mom got remarried to a guy that I still adore and consider him my second father. Um, and he took me in and all that stuff. So from that perspective, I developed this mentality that, there's kids out there who don't have their father, or their father, in my case, my father was always in my life. But I saw what my father did originally with kids who didn't have their father active in their life. So I took on that gene, so to speak. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna be selfish because these kids weren't born into a situation like this. The people who had them were selfish and unaware enough to not understand the role and responsibilities they have. So they should not be punished for it. So I met a girl, I thought she was cute. I said, oh, then find out she has kids. That doesn't automatically disqualify me. And sometimes, in one particular case, it
And I'm sorry,
actually,
real quick. Let me ask a follow up question. So,
Mhm.
it didn't matter what the age of the child was.
No,
Okay,
no.
sorry. Continue.
And actually, that's a good question because I'm getting ready. In one case where I was attracted to a young lady, but she wasn't my quote unquote type, as Michael liked to say, physically wasn't my type, as in she was a big girl. But we were dating. She went back to school. She came back. She got pregnant in school, came back, graduated, and had the most adorable little girl. And I just loved that little girl. And then for a while, I wanted that little girl because, as Michael liked to say, I like to go take over shit. And that actually, along with the great sex, propelled me to formulate in my mind, you can marry this chick. Not none of that, oh, we have compatible signs and the numerology stuff that I do now. It was strictly based on the fact that I wanted that kid and she had great sex. Thank God I could dodge that bullet, but um, I took on that characteristic of wanting to be that kid's father.
Okay. So the question is, when you get invested in these relationships and thus get invested in these children, how does that work when you break up? And also, and also another question that I want to ask along those lines is, in your experiences in dating women with children, how long did you date? What were the conditions for you meeting the child, if there were any?
The first question is I'm using the two examples, not most recent examples, but this it got sticky. Let's put it that way, because in the first example I mentioned, she used the child to try to keep me in that orbit, so to speak. Even though I was like, no, I don't want to be with you. You're crazy as hell. So she used the child, not maliciously, but she would use the child to keep me in the orbit. Okay, yeah, it was.
Sounds
But
malicious. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
was.
sounds
Yeah, it was.
malicious.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was. So, and that's usually, unfortunately, how that rolls,
Yeah.
in my experience, and guys I talked to who were in similar situations. That's usually how that rolls. Unless she dumped you. If she dumps you, then she pretty much don't want any, the contact's gone. But
Yeah.
if you left her and she still wants you, she's going to use the kid to keep you in that orbit.
Okay. And to the second question, what was the process that you went through or that she went through because it was her kid in meeting the child? Obviously, you didn't meet the child on the first date. Was there a process? Was it just like, I feel comfortable with you now. Now I want you to meet my child? How did that work?
Well, actually, that first one, because she was a newborn, there was no process.
Okay.
And that's the tragic part about that particular situation was the fact that up until the longest time, I was the only father that child knew.
Mm,
And she did, when she got older, she didn't know that I wasn't the biological, but from one till like, what, zero till like 3 or 4, I was that face. So
wow.
yeah,
Wow.
that's how I had to learn to braid hair. And get ready to take them to school when the hair's going all over the place, and you be like, oh shit, we got 15 minutes and the school is 10 minutes away. We got to figure something back. And beforehand, you just can slick it back and you know how to do, slick it back, put it in a ponytail, which is actually my favorite, and put a cap on them.
Ponytail is
Fast.
always the way to go.
Ponytail's always the way to go.
Shout out to you. I don't know many men who would take on the role of basically being a step parent to a newborn or relative newborn. It's like usually guys, at least back then, they would have a certain, they have to be at least five, they have to be at least walking, they have to be at least old enough to stay in the house by themselves. So that is interesting.
Well, let me clarify this because this actually still runs with me now. Excuse me. Um, the father will have to be almost completely out the picture
Mm,
for that situation. Almost completely out the picture. There's no way I'm going to share.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. On a side note, part of the whole thing too with me not wanting kids and stuff like that, and it's weird thinking about me as the person who's dating the woman who has the children now, is I reflect back to like my mother when she was dating, and I don't want to make her seem like a slut or anything like that because she's my mother, but there were a lot. What?
I hope she's not listening to your podcast.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm gonna have to find a way to like tell her not to listen to them. Be like,
Yeah,
yo, just listen to the most recent. No,
yeah, exactly.
anyway, yeah, I'll figure that out. But no, I'm saying that she wasn't a slut because she's not. I don't know what she was. Slut shaming is so old. It's like, hey, if she needed to get it in, she needed to get it in. But with all of that saying, let's get off the topic of my mother being a slut. Um,
Let's do that.
it's bad because Reggie knows my mother. But anyway, obviously. But no, the reason I bring that up is because she used to bring guys around, and I never really knew what the protocol was for them meeting us. It just seems like there were guys around that she was dating. And I never really liked any of the guys that she dated and would marry. She got married like three times altogether. My dad was the only one that mattered. And all of these random dudes that would come around. I remember like dudes coming around and like pulling out wads of money and stuff and giving me and my brother money so we could go out and play and stuff. Like,
Dude,
dude,
come on, dude, really,
you know
dude,
what it is. You're just
come
trying to
on.
fuck. And it's like you're just trying to get me out of the house. It's like, but that speaks to like their level of interest in me and my brother. And it's so weird thinking of myself now as not those dudes, but being a dude dating women with children. And I've been in relationships where with women obviously who've had children, and we had to have real discussions about when to meet the children. I remember shoot, it actually turned into an argument because it was like, don't tell me about my kids. And it's like,
Ooh,
and it's fair because I don't have a
no,
child, so I can't get into it with you about about your kids. But from my own experiences, I know that a second date or third date when we argue most of the time is not a good time to introduce your kids to me or to have me around your kids. Because I'm just conscious of like how the kid develops seeing dudes just walk in and out. It's like 1 minute they're gone, 2 weeks, 2 weeks they're there, then the next week they're gone, and then somebody else is coming along. That
yeah,
must messes with you.
yeah, no sense
And
of attachment. Yeah.
yeah, and it's funny how I've been the one who've been cautious, and then I've had people tease me, be like, "You don't like kids anyway, so you don't want to meet them." And it's like,
Actually, believe it or not, that this is the one time I would actually defend you on the podcast. That is not necessarily true at all. I've seen Michael around kids, and as they say, Trick love the kids. Michael just doesn't want them, but when he's around them, for the most part, he's a very chill dude. So, you
oh,
know,
it's funny. Pamela, who was in one of our Ask a Woman episodes, she calls me the dog and kid whisperer because for whatever reason, when I'm around animals and children, for whatever reason, they just like act the way that they should act. So I don't know what that's about, but yeah,
because they scared of getting put in the damn rack. That's
right. Because I'll fuck a kid up. Let me
well, fuck
stop.
that little motherfucker up. Give me a little motherfucker. You never had discipline in your life. You about to get it now.
Boy, that's right. I tell you what, shoot, once they leave my custody, they'll never be the same. Boy. And I mean that for the betterment.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Because
funny you brought that up because when my mom and dad divorced, there was only one guy that my mom, and it was unfortunate, it was right after my mom and dad divorced. There was only one guy I couldn't stand. I could not stand him. I still can't stand him. He never did anything to me. I just still can't stand him. I
Huh.
hated his ass. But as for the rotation, my she married my stepfather. I absolutely positively adored him. There's this other cat that I think you remember him, Ronnie.
Not ringing a bell.
He was a young cat. Actually, my mom was a damn cougar and shit. So yeah, my mom should be slut shamed.
Oh my goodness.
Rest in peace, my
I was
mother.
say I'm definitely not co-signing that,
Rest in peace, my lovely mother. But yeah,
which he
slut,
was,
yeah,
and
she was, but she was a phenomenal woman. But she should be slut shamed. But she was the cougar. She was dating this young cat, and I think it was 10 years younger. And me and him used to actually go out and drink. He was just that cool. He was that cool. He's from the islands and everything. He was just that cool. And then she went and married her high school sweetheart that blew up in flames. So yeah, my mom was also the Elizabeth Taylor of marriage.
you can't be Elizabeth Taylor until you marry somebody twice, the
Oh,
same person 2 times.
yeah, she didn't
So
get around to that yet.
yeah, so that's what distinguishes Liz from everybody else. And for people that don't know Liz Taylor's reference, that's what Google is for. Look it up.
Yes,
But she got married like 8 times, and Richard Burton she married
twice.
twice.
Yeah,
Yeah. Way too much information about Elizabeth Taylor on this podcast.
pretty
But
much. But that was a fussy white woman.
back in her
Back in
day,
the day. Back
you
in the
know,
day.
and that's the thing, because looking at her, she's dead now, obviously, but looking at her in the later years and stuff, when she like gained like 58, 98 pounds or however much it was. But you go back to Cleopatra, which
Hmm.
which people now are giving her grief for like cultural appropriation and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But you know,
Go get a damn life. Anyway,
well, but man, yeah, she was she had it going on. So I'm not mad at Liz for that.
nah.
Now, with that said, getting married 8 times, it's like there are just certain people that are just addicted to marriage. Like it's
Most women,
like
they want the wedding. They just don't want the marriage. They just don't want to be alone. Oh, that's see, you get me on a tangent. Let's get back to kids. And the thing that
let me just say before we get back to kids, I just
Mhm.
find it interesting that someone would get married 8 times. It's like it's just interesting that after the first two, three, four,
after the
five
after
didn't
the
work, that you would let it go.
after the second one, you should start to do some real self-reflection.
You know what it is, right?
They don't want to be lonely.
No, it's an over reliance on chemistry.
No, it's not. The chemistry was the reason why she went back to Rich in the first place.
And got divorced again.
Well, just because you have chemistry doesn't mean that if you don't do the work, it's going to automatically work.
See, this is my fault.
Yeah,
I
it
actually
is.
brought up chemistry
You
this
did that.
time,
You did.
and
Yep.
now I'm frustrated.
Yep. See,
Yep.
you still got to put in the work.
Back to the children.
Trick love the kids.
Yeah. And let me just say, yeah, of course you were like any man that would go drinking with you, regardless of what they were doing with your mother or not, because shoot, people that don't know, Reggie can drink. Reggie's half hungover now. I'm putting all your business out.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And then let me stop. Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that that would have been the dude that you would have liked. But yeah, but what I was saying and the point I was making was that it's so weird being on the other side now. And when I have met children, I always think back to being that kid. And so when I'm talking to women about meeting their children, I'm always thinking from that perspective. And it's not even about, well, meeting the kid brings me closer to the woman or anything like that. My first thought is the kid. And women will dispute because obviously they know their children better than me.
Bullshit.
But especially, and I say especially when it's a boy, but it should be the same for a girl. It should be even more for a girl meeting a strange man.
Mm.
But for some reason, probably because I'm a boy, I just think that you have to be especially careful when
You should
meeting
be,
boys.
yes, you should bring, yes.
Yeah, and conducting myself in ways that don't reflect badly on myself or his mother. Because man, I have been at women's houses with their kids and they're trying to like make out and stuff when the kid is in the other room. I'm like, no, I have a house. This is not a situation. I am not spending the night at your crib, if the kid is there, I'm not doing any of that. And I have been called many things that weren't positive because of my stance on that. But nah, I stand tall on that. I am not going to risk your kid hearing noises or walking in on something because, and boy, I don't know why my mother is such a part of this, but I have
Cause
walked
you
in on
slut
her.
shaming your mom.
I know, but no, this is not slut shaming. But I have walked in on her before, and the shoe it traumatized me. It's like ugh. And so I'm just like, nah,
This
that's not
there's so
happening.
many things I wanted to say about that, but I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
You better
Uh,
not talk about my mother.
I want to go talk about your mother. I'm just, unfortunately, as we're older now, and you're in that position, uh, because I ain't gonna lie, I walked in my mom a couple of times too. Actually, I'm not gonna put the business out there.
You already did.
No, no, not that business. There's some other business. There's one where I really walked in, and it was like, oh shit. Let me put it this way. My lovely sisters listen to this.
Whoa,
But it's
yeah,
like,
way left.
no, no, no. Let's put it this way. As you know, I'm a fun-loving guy. I like to have parties, and I got that from my mom and dad. They just say I walked into one of those Caligula
Oh
situations one time where it was like, oh my god, I didn't know black people did that. So,
man, man, I tell you what, if I walked in on a whole bunch of old people, people our age back when we were kids, man, because I thought that this age that we are now, I thought that was like two steps from death. So the
man,
whole
yeah,
idea of people our age doing anything that would be seen as fun or entertaining or anything like that was just crazy. I can't even imagine walking in on basically a sex orgy of a bunch of like 40, 50-year-old people. I'd just be like, I wouldn't be able to see you right now. I'd be blind.
man. Listen, yeah, I was blind. I mean, let's put it this way: everybody was getting it in. I'm like, Jesus Christ, are you kidding me? Get a goddamn room. Okay, but that is a question I have to ask you on that. Um,
Okay.
since you not, is there a statutes of limitations? I'd like to say that you will relax that I'm not sleeping over rule, like at 12, 15, 16.
Nope. And that's the thing because I have a perfectly fine empty house. And if I'm over at her house chilling, doing whatever, and we're hanging out or whatever, like I said, you talk about relaxing the rule. Like I said, I don't even show affection like that in front of the kid. It's like she'll like try to be on me and kissing me, and I'll be like, yo, chill with that.
But see, there's an issue because the logistics don't work out for her to come to your house. You know that. That's why you were at her house.
Well, yes, yes, you make a fair point, and that is one that I hadn't thought of at that point. But it's like, shoot, if the kid is like 15, 16, like in your example, it seems like that's old enough for him to like stay by himself for a few hours or overnight.
Man, come on. Man, hold up. Hold up. Let me do it, Joseph.
Who's Joseph?
Joseph, my good college friend. Man, listen. These for whatever reason, our generation done sat there and helicoptered these damn kids and put them in the the bubble boy. What's the bubble boy? Put
Yeah.
them in little bubbles, even when they like 35 and shit. But you remember back in the day, they called us the latchkey kids because at the age of 5, we were gonna actually turn the lock. Our parents were gone.
Yeah.
Peace,
One of 'em.
peace. These kids, they won't let these kids stay at home for their kids be 35 years old. Be like, oh well, you're gonna be okay. I don't have to go. No, but get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you know they're gonna happen at 16.
Um, yeah, I get that, but I don't think the way to toughen the kids up is to be fucking their mother like in the next room.
I don't think so either. But I'm just saying that's how it is, man.
and,
That's
and
how it is.
And plus, I have to say, and everybody can relate to this who's dated someone with kids and stuff like that. You really can't get as loose as you want to and stuff with somebody else in the other room, even if you have a nice size house and your bedroom might be upstairs and their bedroom might be downstairs or vice versa. You still can't get as loose as you want to and stuff like that. And as a person who's been single for all of my life and who's used to getting loose because I have my own place.
It's kind of hard not to get loose.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to adjust to like being quiet when I'm so used to getting loose.
Yeah.
And so and
All
so
that, all that busting loose. I feel like busting loose. Busting loose. I mean, damn, come on.
yeah,
Got to do
yeah.
it.
And strangely, we only have 5 minutes left,
Oh,
which
wow.
but yeah, so when to answer your question about relaxing my standards and stuff like that, that would be tough for me. I don't know what the conditions would be. I don't even know honestly if their kid was like of age, like in their well, no, that's ridiculous. Once they leave the house,
I keep
eh,
telling you, these little motherfuckers never leave the house now.
yeah, yeah. I have to. Well, once they get to a certain age or something like that, but I don't know. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know how I handle that. But it's a case by case basis. And at this age, I should be open to anything. There shouldn't be anything that I should be closed minded to at this point. But still, that will be one of the tougher ones to deal with. That, along with dating someone who's 328 pounds, because of course it always has to come up.
Ooh.
It always has to come
Always,
up.
always,
Yep.
always.
Yep.
But there is a question that we didn't get to.
So,
And what my position on dating, if I was in the market, dating women with children now, would I do it? Hell no. Hell no.
okay.
I would not do that.
Now hold up a second. Hold up a second. Like, we talking like 5 year olds, or we talking about even like 16-year olds? What are we talking about?
Neither.
So
They had to be out the house. They had to be completely out the house, have their own family.
So you wouldn't even entertain a woman who has a kid that's a senior in high school.
Nope. Not until that little motherfucker leaves.
See, I'm not even that hardcore. I'm cool as long as they're old enough to stay by themselves. I'm cool with that.
I mentioned this earlier, and as we were talking about it now, as we got the 5 minutes left, I realized the selfish gene that I have and the fact that I don't like sharing.
Hmm.
I don't like sharing. Let's put it this way. And, you know, it's hard enough for me to sometimes share my wife with her own family. That's just how I am. So if why the hell, as I, understand myself now, want to share with, I mean, it's very wrong of me because that's her kid. So I should share, right? I should understand my role, but there lies the problem. Those are not my kids. So why the hell do I have to share for another man's seed? Fuck all that.
And the woman will remind you that they're not your kid.
Exactly. I'm not putting that. No, 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 no. No. Go. I think women who have kids that are not yours and they get back in the dating pool need to understand and appreciate the fact that men who don't have kids are making sacrifices of their time and their resources to share with some other man's kid.
Yeah. And we have a minute left, but I'll end by saying what I already said earlier. It's amazing to me meeting women nowadays who say that they won't date men with children. And
I
it's so,
wonder why.
again, the hypocrisy. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, the kids don't even live with the man usually. So it's like, even if they're keeping the kids on weekends,
Mhm.
that's too much for a woman to deal with now. Whereas,
You
again,
still expect us
I
to
used to
do
get
it.
beaten down. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So that's just interesting to me. And I remember Nicole said that it had something to do that they didn't trust the relationship between the man and the baby's mother. That's what kind of deterred her.
So hell, we supposed to trust them not fucking the guy they actually want to get two kids to?
Exactly, exactly.
Hell.
So it's all kind of weird. So yeah, we have a minute left. Let's wrap this up by saying, um, I think, yeah, there really isn't anything to say except for my mother is a fine woman. She is a beautiful, lovely woman, and anything that happened in her freakish days are, hey, like I always say, everybody was at Freaknik 95 and has a story about it. Reggie, what are your final words in the last 30 seconds?
My mother was a phenomenal woman, but boy, she was Caligula. And hey, I got it honest though. I used to always say in the show, I'm a whore. Hey, got
And
it honest.
And if you don't know the Caligula reference, please look that up. Datingwhileadulting.com. Thank you for stopping by. And yeah, until the next one, keep checking us out. Goodbye. Say bye,
Goodbye.
Reggie.
Bye, Reggie.
Okay, we're clear.
Okay.
Um,
So let's get into that part, even though, Yeah, man. Women need to know their role when they're dating guys who don't have kids and understanding the fact that, yo, this guy actually likes me. He's willing to deal with some other man's kids that I, quote unquote, had with, I'm getting so mad right now. I can't even speak. I need you to jump in because I need to breathe. Woo,
Well,
wasabi,
yeah, yeah.
wasabi.
Yeah, the only part that bothers me is the hypocrisy of it all and the fact that women now see what men had to deal with. But the difference is the kids are there with the woman all of the time. And I remember, and this is something I meant to bring up in the main recording, um, is that it's just so hard dating women, especially with small children, at least it was back in the day, because kids just have a sense of when their mother is like talking to a dude, and that is the time when they act their worst, at least a lot of times with the women that I had dated with children. And it would be like we'd be on the phone talking, and then it's just like we can't even have a like real conversation because every 5 seconds is like, shut up. Oh, what you want? You good? What you need? And all this stuff. And then when I'm just like, well, you can call me back later. Oh no, we're fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's that attention thing. And that goes back. I wish we'd have said this. We should have got this in the main one because that's how I actually learned how to be selfish in not sharing this thing because I realized that kid, I mean, hell, I had kid. Let's say I had kids with my wife. I understand I'm not gonna like it, but I will understand my role that the kid's gonna get most of the attention. I get that. I
Yeah,
understand that, but
yeah.
that's my kids also. So I can take the little bastard on and go play baseball too. So but it's my kid. I don't have that power with some other man's kid. And as you sat there and said, that little bastard gonna always want mom's attention and cut into my action. And what I supposed to, it's just supposed to say, oh, okay, I understand. Fuck all that.
Yeah. Now, I will give women credit in this regard.
There you go. Put no heels on.
No, whereas back in the day, even though women wouldn't admit it when I was dating, it was obvious that they were looking for someone to father their kid, to be a father to their kid,
Yes,
and to do things with the kid that their fathers, if they were around, didn't do.
true.
Now, with the women that I'm meeting with children now, it's like they're not really looking for that as much, which I appreciate. I have not met women that have just like tried to impose their children on me. Like I talked about the argument that I had with the one woman who I felt wanted me to meet her kid too soon. It wasn't any type of obligation or anything that that she ex, anything that she expected of me. It was more of just like we're getting close, so this is the next step in us getting close is meeting the kid, and that made sense from her
How,
perspective.
how old was the kid?
Kid was like 16.
Oh, that doesn't count. The little
Right,
motherfucker's out the house.
right. So it's cool, but even dating women who are younger, and I think the youngest that I've dated in this dating era of mine, I think 13, 12 or 13, something like that. And even with that, um, um, it's rough. And part of the reason that's rough, has been rough is because a lot of women, to their credit, they put their kids in a lot of extracurricular activities.
Yes.
And so
Boy.
it's hard to get time with them because every weekend they're at a
Yeah.
soccer game or a baseball game or something like that. And it's like then they're tired from that. Then they're running them around here and there. So our time is kind of cut
Yeah.
because of so many times. And you can't tell them, women, you need to spend more time with me, because you can't like say that at the expense of their kid, because that'll make you look like a dick.
I'm a dick, and I have done that. Uh,
Reggie being Reggie.
yeah, because it's like, well, let me rephrase. I've done that. How can I put this? I wasn't dating a woman, but I was in a situation where, no, let me think about this. I've done it. I've done it. I've done it. It's like, look, and I be point blank, I tried to make the amends. Goes back to what I said before about the appreciation and the gratitude and understanding I am sacrificing. But God damn it, it's like this. That's not my kid. So either you choose, not choose between us, but you need to choose to prioritize your time on how you want to do this. Because right now, I'm getting the short end of the stick, and I have other options who's not going to give me the short end of the stick.
This is interesting. And for people watching, this is our YouTube extra segment that we are
It's,
having after the podcast. And now, as we do more and more talking, I'm starting to think I should add this to the main
like I said, this is the
download.
after hours. Yeah, this is the after
Yeah, this
hours.
is the after end.
But yeah,
But
that's why, going back to the main one. That's where I did the switch, because I realized for the most part I'm getting a shorty in the stick for some other man to see, and fuck all that. I'm not, I just supposed to understand because they're your kids. I don't care. You chose to have sex and have babies with that motherfucker, not me. Why am I getting punished for it?
yeah, I've never when I've had to have conversations about time, and yeah, I think I am going to find a way to add this to the main thing. Might have to pay for some extra time. But anyway, that's neither here nor there either. But the things that I've had when time has been an issue with the woman that I've been dating because of the children, I'll bring it up. That time is an issue, but I will never like say it's because of your kids or you need to do less with your kids. I'll just mention it in terms of, look, we're not spending a lot of time together. It's like I'm not even seeing you, so our relationship is kind of stagnant. And then I will leave that to her to determine how she wants to fix that. Because my thing, and to your point, Reggie, if you meet someone, regardless of how you meet them, and they say that they are available to date, because I always ask women,
Mm-hmm.
what is your availability, especially if they
Mm-hmm.
have kids, especially back in
Mm-hmm.
the day, now not so much. And they always say, well, yeah, I know I can make time for someone that I care about. It's what I hear all the time. They can make time
Until they don't.
until they don't. And then it's like I said, I'm never going to tell you, look, your kid's taking too much of your time. I'm just going to say, yo, we're having a problem with time, and then let them handle it how they want to. And then I've had actually gotten into discussions where women be like, well, what you want me to do? It's like, spend less time with my kid. And I'm like, I'm not telling you that.
See,
I'm just telling you to figure it out how you figure it out. I am never going to tell you to spend less time with your child.
Ashley, if she gonna come at me like that, you know what I'm doing. Yeah. If that's your only solution, yeah. I didn't ask you to do that, but if that's your immediate solution, yes.
Nah, I'm letting that go. And then another thing, and then another thing that's interesting about it is it can kind of go the reverse. This has been more prevalent in my dating experiences than what we just discussed. Now, I'm single. I'm a bachelor, and I am out in these streets.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not out here looking for other women. I don't mean it like that.
But at the
But
same time,
you know what I do, Reggie. And
yeah.
so it's like, if you're going to be at a baseball game or some kind or a basketball game or a soccer game all weekend, I am not just going to sit at
Sit
home
home waiting for
while
you to
you.
call me.
Yeah, it's like if there's a concert, I'm going to that concert. If the fellas want to go out, I'm going out. And I've had more than a few women get mad at me
You
because
better
I was out
preach.
living my life
You better preach.
when they were like, well, I'm doing all of this stuff and you're out having fun. And God forbid if I'm someplace and I don't hear the phone when they call and decide that they want to talk when they're bored during the soccer match or something like that.
You better
It's,
preach.
it's like, I was here all day and I tried to call you. It's like, okay, I called you back. You, yeah,
Come on, preacher. Come
yeah.
on,
So,
preacher.
so,
But
so,
give me Holy Ghost. Come on, preacher.
oh, stop it. And then it's like, I feel bad, like guilty for having fun. So it's like,
You do?
when we have conversations about how the day went and they're talking about, yeah, the soccer thing was good and he made it, scored a goal, what did you do? And I'm thinking, well, we went to Wolf Creek, we had our lawn chairs and we had everything, we was listening to music, and then we went out to dinner and all that, and it's just like, I don't feel comfortable saying all of that because
Shit.
knowing what she went through in her day, I don't want it to seem like I'm rubbing it in, but shoot,
Oh, you so
that's
compassionate.
what my day consisted of, and it's different from your day, and it's because of the choice that I made. And it's like,
Exactly. It's like you're so compassionate because I wouldn't have a problem. Say, hey, yeah, I went to the bar. Me and my boy did this, and this. Because guess what? I'm living my life. This is the life I chose. I have no kids and blah, blah, blah. You chose to get married or have kids, either or. And this is your obligation, your burden. You need to figure out how to make peace with that, not put that guilt on me.
yeah. And in one sense, it sounds kind of crass or whatever, but I really am sympathetic, and that's why I feel bad about it, and that's why I don't want to talk about it because I do feel for your plight. And it's like,
Why?
regardless, well, I'm not going to tell a woman, well, it was your choice to have that kid or something like that. I'm just like,
I will.
I'm just really cautious about saying anything that would like make her feel a certain way about her child. And so I would hate for a woman to think, look, look at her child a certain way, because women do, some women have, um, that will put her relationship over their child, or have their man cause them to look at their child a certain way. And so there's just like a fine line that you have to tread. And and yeah, I just don't
in
want
in
to
all in all
enter that.
seriousness, because as you just hit on a point that I think is very relevant, women that have children, because it doesn't affect men as much. If you decide to go back in those streets and start dating, and this is my criterion first when we first started this podcast. Be careful who you marry and want to have kids with. So you need to do vetting. Not saying that you can do your vetting and it still turns to be sideways, but at least you did your due diligence. Same thing with dating. If you already have kids outside of the guy you're dating, um, if you and it goes back to what you said before, where some women wanted you to be the instant father of the ones that's not there.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing if they actually did the vetting, realizing that, they may not say it to you, but it's like, okay, he can actually be their father. Not say it to you, but you know what I'm saying? So that mindset is, this is a great guy. I will devote myself to you because I know that you will also take care of me and the kids.
Well,
Instead of sitting there saying, these are my kids and you just have to deal with it and you get time when you get time.
Well, I think the major difference, and now we have 2.5 minutes left, but I think the major difference in back then in dating the women that I dated that wanted you to be their father and stuff like that, this was back in the day. And oftentimes those women weren't married, because you remember back in the 20s and 30s, you would meet a lot of women who just had kids and they weren't married.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm meeting more and more women that have gone through marriages, and their situation is a lot tougher because you enter a
Yes.
marriage thinking it's going to be forever, and you have
Yes.
kids as a result of that bond, as opposed to just somebody being reckless when they were younger
I agree with
because they
that.
got with somebody and they didn't like the way condoms feel.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. No comment. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I
So
get with that. But at the same time, you need to, the women, I think, that are in that situation need to be even more cautious of the fact that, okay, um, I need to figure out how to do this because this is not this guy's kids. I did have a marriage and everything just blew up at the same time. I just cannot expect this guy to sacrifice his time and his resources because my situation didn't turn out the way I planned it to turn out. There needs to be some awareness. There needs to be some compassion, some sympathy for the man who doesn't have kids coming into this situation trying to date you. And
yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of that compassion out there.
I think a lot of what I experience when I'm meeting more and more married women is that they're not, because they've been married, regardless of how long it is, they kind of have a marriage mindset,
Okay.
and they don't really understand how dating works,
Okay.
especially in this new era with online and guys not accepting the traditional roles and things like that. They still have that marriage mindset, and it's just different. And part of the adaptation to being newly single, regardless of how long you've been single, is just the fact that things are different now.
Things are
And
different.
I don't really know what the differences are, and I don't know how to adapt to them. So yeah, a woman is like, "Yeah, I'm mad because you went to that concert that I couldn't go to," and you're like, "Hey, I don't know what you're used to, but this is the way life works."
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's
This
like,
is this is reality here.
yeah, yeah, we all have to accept the choices and be responsible for the choices that we make. And
Yes.
and I always say, and we need to wrap up now, but and all I'll say is that, shoot, you have the benefit of having someone who will take care of you when you're old. I don't have that. So
Yep.
when we're old, I'm not gonna be like, shoot, you're struggling to get out of the tub, and you have your kid there to help you out of the tub, and me saying, I can't believe that you no, we all have to accept the good and the bad that comes with kids. And
True.
yeah, so that's my closing words. You got anything else to wrap up for real on this?
For real on this, like I said, you brought You brought it around to me. I won't be as harsh, but I still believe that the compassion and the understanding. You brought it around with me with the adaptation. I think a lot of these women who've been married and have kids and get back in this world don't adapt very well. So I give you some compassion, but you need to understand that the guy who's single coming in dating you is not their kids, and you need to adapt a lot quicker than you probably are doing.
Yeah, you definitely need to adapt. But datingwhileadulting.com, I'll let Reggie have that last word. Thank you all for coming by as usual. Email, comment, YouTube, subscribe, download, however you get it. We appreciate it. Goodbye for real now.
Bye.